Good morning, dear friends. Good morning, everybody. Today's program is in English, and we have here Tamara LASHCHYK. Hi, Tamara. How are you?
I'm well. Здравствуйте.
Tamara is a career coach, and she spent time on Wall Street. And she's a person who I read a piece by her at the Creative Media, Creative Destruction website, and it was called "Never Again is Happening Now." And that was the beginning of what they call now the chain of custody, because I started looking up her name, and it turned out that she's a Republican. Not just that, she ran for the State Assembly, District 66, in New York City last year against the incumbent, the current lady in charge. I don't know the pronouns. I have not. Yeah, the pronouns. I mean, that's I'm worried about. That's why I have my sleepless nights. So the whole thing turned out to be that Tamara is a career coach right now, and she kindly agreed to be with us. The program is called, in Russian, it's called Sur s Юрой, meaning surreal with Yura. It doesn't have the same ring in English, so I did not put the Russian caption, the English caption on it. But it's or the other name is can be said over the telephone, because that was something that people would say in Soviet Union. You cannot talk we cannot talk about it over the phone. So that's another program, because I think nowadays I think a lot about the Voice of America, which is not my grandfather's Voice of America. It's a totally communist, pro everything bad radio, whatever station. Now they added the YouTube, etc., etc. But that's what we do. That's what we do. We try to have fun. We try to have our coffee and not kind of spray on the monitor. During this whole procedure, because it's really surreal what's going on. It's crazy. Russians who came over here have to talk about capitalism once again. The first time Russians came here in 1888, we talked about communism, bringing communism here. Now we want to bring capitalism here. Tamara, tell us a few words about yourself. The rest of the program is yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes, so as you said, I'm a career and business coach. I spent 26 years working in financial services, so working on Wall Street, and in 2019 had decided to leave the industry and start my own coaching business, where I coach mid to late career professionals on career reinvention. And as I was helping them reinvent their careers, I was reinventing my own, and had met a woman who was running for Congress who happened to be a Republican, which is a very strange thing in New York City. And she encouraged me and urged me to run for office. And originally I had been asked to run for Congress, but I thought that it was too short of time period, so I agreed to run for state assembly. And it has been a very wise decision, because it's opened a lot of political doors for me, as well as taught me how to run a campaign. And it's just been a wonderful experience. I've met a lot of like-minded people in New York City, many of the sort of silent majority, and just made a lot of terrific friends. I'm still very active in the political scene, but a little bit more behind the scenes, and I'm trying to get some of our fellow Republican candidates elected. So that is where we are today.
Yeah, one of the things that, like structural ideas that we are struggling with, shall we unite everybody around some one or two ideas that people can get together, agree upon, or we should just go by ourselves, because the statistics is such a stubborn thing. It's not only lying, not lying 100% of the time, but sometimes it says that a very small portion, people talking about 13-15% of the population, can really make a change, as it happened, unfortunately, in 1917 in Russia. During revolution, there was really a handful of people who turned things upside down. and achieve the horrible results. But it also can be done for the good purposes. So, what do you think? What should be strategy to divide and conquer, or to unite and win?
Yeah, I think unite and win is always a better strategy. I mean, if you look back also in the American Revolution, it was a very small percentage of people that rose up and fought the British. So I think that it's very important to unite like-minded people. I do think that people are getting the sense that that is the right move. I myself also have a podcast and have reached out to a number of people who are, you know, bigger names, and they've agreed to, talk to me and work with me because they understand the importance of uniting these like-minded people. We're not going to win this alone. We have to unite people. We have to create as much of a groundswell as possible and really rise up together.
Yeah, but we have different sets of facts. We operate with things that, the values got so far apart from what we believed in, like 5, 10, 20 years ago. I came to this country 20 years ago, and 25 years ago. Sorry, time flies. And it was, even I say there was a different country. A lot of things got better. A lot of things, including political tone and media and movies, and they got worse. And television got worse. To me, there's no. I mean, there are some outstanding series, but they come from Israel of all places, and the everything became so PC. While Bill Maher was making fun of political correctness, political correctness grew like a cancer. And it's stifling and strangling every piece of life that we have today. But a lot of people, you see, that's my thing. It's really a serious question because, first of all, we have our Inna Vernikov running for city council, a young Russian attorney in 48th district in Brooklyn, and the bench, the Democratic bench, is very weak. The candidates that they have, they're very weak in Brooklyn in particular. And I
The
would say
Democratic or the Republican?
Democratic. We have the guy, they have the guy who is like twice as tall as Ina, and he cannot speak. He's also of Russian extraction, Russian Jewish, and he for 2 years he was trying to make it as a Republican. Before it was the same seat. For two times he failed, and now then he crossed to the dark side, let's call it, for the convenience of our conversation. So he crossed over there, and now he's trying to make it as a Democrat, and he cannot talk, and he cannot. I mean, I said he talks like a loser, he walks like a loser, so make him one. So that's the deal with him. But look at Joe Biden. He's a convenient, of course. He's a convenient figure for those who would like to be his puppet master. But he's the weakest. Kamala Harris, of all people who were standing on this stage, I went to a Republican club to see the first, second debate in a company of Republicans in the city. And people were having so much fun, and they were looking at the lineup and who's the worst. Of course, Bernie Sanders was there, and he was a shining star of the whole thing. That tells you a lot. Old, white, male, and Jewish too. So, and they picked up the guy who's a total failure for so many years, being in Senate, and not a single articulate bill, not a single proposal, and just getting slowly encroaching on the taxpayers' money and building this ugly mansion, and then buying this ugly mansion. And the Hunter Biden thing. Does anybody waking up? Is anybody waking up to the Hunter Biden story in your neighborhood? Is it like a talk of the town?
Well, my neighborhood, I mean, I live in a plus 42 blue district.
Hmm.
So there's not only a lot of Democrats, this part of town is pretty radical. Not in my immediate neighborhood. I still live in a part of this neighborhood is still, a little old Italian. I do have a pretty good mix of Republicans. I have some neighbors that, supported Trump during the election, and then I have some who have Trump derangement syndrome, and you can't even mention his name.
Of
Some of
course.
them do see what's going on. It really depends on how engaged you are in your media. I mean, if you're watching, CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox to a certain extent, you're really getting a narrative, and you're not really getting any information. In fact, when I was running for office and people wanted to debate politics, I really would not even bother if I knew that that was their only source of information, because I knew exactly what their point of view was going to be, down to the word choice. I mean, even my brother was like, "You're radicalized." And I was like, "Oh, did you watch Brian Stelter this weekend? Because that seemed to be his word of the hour." So you really have to, as a coach, I do a lot of work on the mind, the subconscious mind, and we tend to, in coaching, program our own subconscious mind for positivity and to attract everything that we want. And when you start to learn about the subconscious mind, you start to realize how hardwired our patterns are into our brain. And then when you start to correlate it to information that you're getting from news, you start to understand that it's starting to get hardwired into your brain. And it's literally propaganda and brainwashing. So you have to break the pattern by detoxing from the news. I know people I told them I didn't watch any news, and they decided to follow suit. And they said after a week, it's like they snapped out of a trance. Like you're literally in a trance. So you've got to first break away from the news, and you've got to, start doing some of your own research and start reading books and really start to understand the historical context and where we've come from as a world, as a nation, and that will give you perspective on where this is all going.
Yeah. Even the current leader of the most powerful country in the world, named recently by somebody, gave me a good laugh just when you put down your coffee cup, I'll tell you. Joseph Stalin. His name is Joseph Stalin. Even he doesn't dare sometimes to say the word Trump out loud. Yes, the previous administration, that's really like some voodoo spell, cast over them, because what does it tell you about the person if they cannot say a word? Somebody has struggling saying a word Jew. They cannot. Or they say, you ask somebody who owns the Crimea, the Crimea, who does Crimea belong to? I was struggling with the question, to put it, who's Crimea, right? Would be Crimean Peninsula, of course, and that's like a shibboleth for the things that you would like to know about the person. So it's just when you cannot say Trump, it tells a lot about the mental capacity of a
Yeah.
person.
And look, honestly, it's not necessarily people's fault or the fault of the viewer. I mean, if they're watching the news, they're literally being brainwashed. And, my brother was always a very calm person. And he watches CNN nonstop. His wife is always complaining that all he does is watch CNN day in and day out. And, I started to see when Trump won the first election in 2016, he did not like Trump. I don't know why he was so opposed to him, because he was in real estate and he read Trump's book. So at one point he really did like Trump. So he started to buy into this media narrative. And I started to see how emotional he started to get over time, to a point where he literally had Trump derangement syndrome. Like, you could not say certain things, you couldn't have certain political discussions, because he would have a visceral emotional response. And I was just shocked. Like, I don't have, I have a lot of passion, but I could say Joe Biden. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, and in fact, I try to remain as objective as possible regarding all politics, because once you start getting emotional about it, then you lose all your perspective. So I try
No,
to look at it
absolutely.
in a much more academic kind of way, which then allows me to see what is going on is just crazy.
So much for your academicity. Tamara. I want to transition to your piece that first caught my eye, and so many, and it was absolutely brilliant. And to transition, I want to ask you one thing, maybe just not to make a big discussion out of it, but out of the ideas that can unite us as a working hypothesis. Yeah, I don't believe much in uniting at this point, frankly. But there's two things that seems to be working, should be working for all of us. One is schools, education, children, and the other one is vax, vax, vax.
Hmm.
COVID, COVID, COVID. So which one
Yeah.
is more viable for us to get around and say enough already?
Well, they're both extremely important.
We can do
I
both too, by the way.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the schools are important. And are you talking about specifically, are you talking about COVID in schools, or are you talking about curriculums in schools?
You get your child to a school. You send your child to a school, and what happens in school is masks COVID. One, education as it used to be with a lot of stuff that is not fun and useless. And now we have on top of that the politicization and the kids being told that they're not good enough if they're white.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah, so critical race theory, sure. Sure. I mean, I think they're they're both equally bad. I think that the more pressing, as far as I can tell, is really vaccine passport. And the reason that I believe it is so pressing is that, especially in New York, which we're seeing with these edicts that you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to sporting events, and you can't go to concerts and cultural events, and you can't go to the gym, which is which is ironic. But you can't go unless you have a vaccine passport, so unless you've been vaccinated. And what happens in New York happens in the rest of the country. They say 10 years later. Obviously, with technology, that timeline has been shortened. But I do believe that New York is the prototype. If we allow this to happen here, it is going to come to the rest of the country. And we're already seeing it in other parts of the world. And I'm very proud, particularly of the French, who are protesting this in mass. And there is a presidential election coming up next year. So I think that Macron is taking a little bit of a pause on this vaccine passport and stepping back a little bit, because I think he knows that his political future may be in jeopardy because of it. And I've seen Boris Johnson has also done a little bit of way with that. But in New York, I am just surprised too that so many people, so many people are actually supportive of this. I used to work at Deutsche Bank. I'm on a WhatsApp chat with a number of employees, and I asked if Deutsche Bank is demanding, mass vaccinations before they come back to the office, and they said no, not as of yet. And then the discussion started to ensue about vaccine passports, and people on the chat were supportive. And I didn't want to get kicked out of the chat because it's my only access to information on Deutsche Bank and other companies. So I stepped back, but my immediate response was, "You would have all made great Nazis." That was my. I mean, they were promoting not only supporting the vaccine passport, but they were suggesting to make this a global passport and make it, electronic. And you have to remember, first of all, this is the prototype, and this technology that they're trying to use to roll out this vaccine passport in New York is the same technology that is being used by China to monitor its social credit scores. And it does not take a lot for the powers that be to connect the databases and gather all that information into one centralized source. Interestingly, I was just recently on the IRS website looking up something about, my personal taxes, and to log onto the site, it said, we need to verify your identification. So put in any one of your credit card numbers so that we could identify, who you are. And I was shocked because that means that the IRS is already connected to our banking system, and it's already starting. Okay. Now, this means it's also, a few steps away from being connected to our medical system. And all that information is going to be centralized, and that credit score system is coming. And if your listeners aren't familiar with the social credit score that they have in China, I mean, this is how they track and control their people. They know exactly where they are at all times. If you say anything bad about the government, they will come knocking on your door. You will be arrested. You may be disappeared if the case is really bad, or you'll be sent to an internment camp to get reprogrammed. So this is the model. And if we allow this to happen, this is where we're going. And we're already seeing on Facebook, you are given a credit score, sort of a credit score, if you speak out against vaccinations or say something questioning the validity of COVID statistics. They start to give you a sort of score. And if you have a business and you advertise using Facebook, they could shut down your business.
But if you're good, you get a better rate on credits. You get in the bank. You get a college discount, or even for free if you reach, I think it's like 1,500 points. They give you some points. I think they start. I did a program on that in Russian, and they give you like 500 or 600 points, and they see how you spend it. And if you lose it quickly, it also counts towards your character. And they show people on screens in the street when the people. This person has this score. Sometimes just to shame them. It may be working for them. I doubt it, but. If that's their cup of tea, if that's their bag, then they let them roll with that. But it's not ours, and they can pretend they hacked us. They got the information from us, all the credit card numbers, and they will do with that God knows what. So that digitalization is pretty scary. And my recent moment of radicalization, personal radicalization, and radicalization in this regard was when there were reports from California regarding the Newsom recall. And we have a very active member of our ring, so to speak. One of the speakers, one of frequent guests, beautiful Maria Rutenberg in Redwood City, California. And she went to the site a few days ago when they had the recall. And she was speaking with two ladies who do the adjudication process. And she said that in San Mateo County, where she resides, it's like 58% of the ballots that require adjudication, meaning the people who were filling them out, they didn't know what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And my immediate reaction was just throw away those ballots. People who do not know how to vote should not be able to vote. They can do anything they want. They can get rich, they can get poor, they can get drunk, they can get sober, finally. But they should not be voting because they don't know the difference between a check and the fill in the oval or putting a square in a circle. It's just not their thing. You don't want them to be like Olympic champions, or maybe they are, but not voting, because you need some level of understanding. I'm not talking about the taxpayers having only exclusive right to vote, or those who are in the military some way, like it used to be when democracy was really a big thing in Athens many years ago. If you read today what democracy was in Athens, most of the East Village, West Village and East Village for that matter, wouldn't want to have anything in common with democracy. Because it was very, like 10% was ruling the rest. Again, we're talking about very small part of the population that can come to an agreement what is good for the society. But now, your piece that we try to, as someone says, they call her nowadays a Ginger Goebbels. Circle back. Let's circle back.
Okay.
You remember, you know what I'm talking about, Jen Psaki? That used to be her thing. It's circle
Yes.
back, yeah. So this, I just read this morning someone called her Ginger
Yeah.
Gilbus. So
I
now,
haven't heard her being called that, but the circle back reference, yes, that's what we call her too, Miss Circle Back.
yeah. So let's talk about your piece about Never Again. And it
Hmm.
has a big picture with a swastika on top of it. It's a document of one's. They used to call it race hygiene. They used to call it like health passport. They had it in Germany. So
Yeah.
what was it about?
Well, that photo was actually put in by CD Media. They selected that photo, which is fine with me. I mean, the what prompted me. I mean, I'm horrified. I live in New York City. I can't go out to restaurants, and can't live a normal life, and um, because of this vaccine passport. And regardless of whether you believe in vaccines or not vaccines, or COVID vaccine or not, the passport needs to go, because this is not about public health. It is about government control. And I am starting. It's very interesting, because somebody said, "You're a COVID denier," and I said, "No, I'm actually not a COVID denier. I do believe that the virus exists, but I am becoming a pandemic denier, because I am seeing the recovery rates for this illness is extremely high. We have shut down our economy. The world has shut down their economy for a disease that has a very high recovery rate, something like 99.3%. Um, and if you have a disease that has that high of a recovery rate, why are we doing all of this? You have to step back and ask yourself these questions. And when we were in the middle of COVID and we didn't yet know how to treat it, and we didn't have a vaccine, in New York, Governor Cuomo put in an executive order that you are not allowed to prescribe hydroxychloroquine for COVID. And I was shocked by this, and I even tested it with my own doctor, who did not believe me. He said that can't be. Pharmacists never overstep like that. That's just not how it's really done. And so we tested it. We called in a prescription, and the pharmacist called us back and asked what the diagnosis was. Now, we lied, and we said it was for lupus. And the pharmacist specifically told us that if it were for COVID, he's not allowed to fill the prescription. I mean, I was horrified by this government overreach. And if they really cared about your health, they would allow you to work with your doctor and allow your doctor to prescribe any form of medicine, therapeutics that is necessary for you to recover from the illness. This is about power and profit and government control. That's it. And this passport is a means to get us there. And we are way too complacent. And we are, in America, way too complacent. I'm looking again at France and other countries, and they're protesting this appropriately. And I'm saying to myself, where are the Americans protesting this? We need to be fighting this. But in New York City, people are bought into this. They are really like, I get worried that I'm going to get turned in by neighbors who know that I'm not vaccinated. Like, I sometimes wonder if I am going to be if there's going to be a knock on the door, and it's going to be
A
some
friendly
militia.
voice.
Yeah, I know for sure I'm going to end up in a COVID camp. There's no question. There's no question. And don't think that is not going to happen, because I have seen that there is a bill on the New York State Senate floor. It didn't pass in the last go round, which was apparently in May, but there is a bill to create, health camps, COVID camps. So what we're seeing going on in Australia is the plan for the rest of the world. So don't think that this can't happen again.
The thing is that once people submit to socialism, to the ideas of socialism, there is no end to this whole thing, and every crazy story in the book they will try to make into the law in this country. And it's, to me, it's amazing how people who are believe it or not, with everything you see in New York, we see a lot of and hear a lot of stupid things about the city. But the city has a lot of smart people, a lot of clever people. They may not be like 100% moral. They cannot be, they have their own deficiencies, like their people, of course, but they can put one and one together. And looking at Dr. Fauci, changing sides like a crazy rabbit, running away from a fox. He's absolutely insane if you put his statements one after another. Of course, at the same time, he's the highest paid employee in the country, state government worker in the country. But how come people do not discuss those things and come to a conclusion that says that give us the real deal, give us the story. This is crap. It doesn't make sense.
As far as I'm concerned, he's a war criminal, and he should be tried in a tribunal as such for crimes against humanity. Because and I stated this in the last sentence of my article, he's the godfather of this illness. Okay, he is the one who financed these experiments, these gain of function experiments that really only had a sole purpose of weaponizing a virus. Okay, so when you change the structure of a virus to make it more lethal, more transmittable, that is weaponization of a virus. So this is a bioweapon, make no mistake, okay? Was it released intentionally or was it by accident? I can't say, I don't know, but make no mistake, they were making a bioweapon. The US government knew they were making a bioweapon, and we financed that bioweapon. As did the French and others. I mean, the French helped build the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So, there's a lot of different countries and governments that have been involved in this, which is probably why they don't want to hold China accountable solely, because they know that they had a hand in this as well. So that's one thing. The second thing is you say that there's a lot of smart people. There are a lot of smart people, but you have to remember that this is something that is an emotional thing. And, brainwashing triggers an emotional response. And, that is how come I think it's so effective, is because, we respond based on our emotions. How many times did you say, okay, logically this and this and this, and yet you go and do this anyway,
Yeah.
or this person's not good for you, yet you're attracted to. I mean, we really respond and behave based on emotions. So I have doctors, arguably, the smartest people, and they call me up all the time and debate this vaccine with me. And, again, they're on these the healthcare, they're on these calls with the healthcare industrial complex, because again, make no mistake, that's what this is. They have no idea what's in this vaccine. I think I've told you, I've long studied vaccines. So I've had countless conversations with doctors through the years about vaccines. They have no idea what's in a vaccine. They're given a vaccine schedule, told to comply. And if they don't comply to that schedule, they're in danger of losing their license. They don't know anything about nutrition. I'm very big on nutrition as medicine, and they don't know anything about nutrition. Why? Because the food lobby keeps nutritional education out of medical schools. They only have something like 3 hours worth of education on nutrition. So while they're doctors, they really don't know. And I've had a conversation with my doctor who's a physical rehabilitation doctor. Okay, she's not a virologist. She's not an immunologist. She's not a vaccinologist. I mean, arguably, I know way more about this vaccine than she does. Okay, and I'm not a doctor. So I think that people aren't necessarily using their heads. I think they're too emotional and they're responding. Fear is a very, very powerful tool, and that is what is being used in order to control people and behavior. People are terrified of this virus.
Yeah, and maybe it explains this phenomenon with all our conversation about liberty and freedom and the difference between liberty and freedom, etc., etc. And people are turned out to be so eager to submit, to be handcuffed, to be messed up. Cubre
Yes.
boca, por favor. It's so that's the thing, and that's really disheartening because a lot of ideas now they say the real freedom is to be handcuffed and messed up and follow the and then show your papers, please.
Yeah.
That's where freedom lies for everybody.
Yes. And I saw the dramatic change first after 9/11, and I was down at ground zero during 9/11, and so lived through that day firsthand. And then soon after that, when we were trying to get back to normalcy, we were begging for our government to keep us safe. They started to look into our bags every time we were boarding anything. So, your local ferry, if you were coming, from New Jersey, they had a guard there or a police officer checking your bag to make sure. And we were so glad to do. We're like, absolutely, search my bag. Just keep us safe. Just keep us safe. And that was freedom that we never got back. And that's the thing. Once you give it up, you never get it back. So I saw that change happen right before my very eyes. And my father always was, typical, comes from, foreign country, has his sort of views about, almost a little paranoid, and we thought he was a little crazy, and his whole thing was social security numbers. He's like, this is going to be used to track us, and they're not supposed to use this for any other purpose than social security. And of course we were like, oh, Dad, you're crazy and stuff. And here I am. Here I am, my father's daughter.
No,
So
you cannot escape. My grandfather, he used, as I said, he used to be listening to the Voice of America, the BBC at night. He had this shortwave radio, pretty good, two of them actually, and he kept it. It was like old style, with the lamps and everything. So he was listening to that all night, and then in the morning he would go about his business, and he would stop every person he could trust, like with the information, and he would talk to him, telling him what he heard on the radio, and we laughed at it a little bit, and then look at me. I'm reading, say, my morning time here. Usually, I read New York Times, I read daily news, I read the newspapers, the propaganda newspapers, and I read them between the lines. I try to explain in Russian what they try to say, because you can read a lot if you don't read the actual writing, but just to understand what they try to cover for and what they're afraid of. And the hysteria always a sign that we're doing something right. If the powers get hysterical and
yeah.
unreasonable and irrational, then it means that the other side is doing something right. So, what do you think in the city council, Inna Vernikov? It is just something that I wanted your experience with. What should be front and center in her? It's not our word struggle, but we have to use the word struggle as Michelle Obama used to pronounce it. So,
Yeah.
what's the main focus should be for her, considering your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the focus and issues for New Yorkers are really crime and the crime rate. I mean, people feel very unsafe. You have homeless encampments that are popping up all over the city, even in very exclusive neighborhoods. The parks, Washington Square Park has been hijacked, and you can't walk by there late at night and feel safe. There's been people being stabbed. There's been gunshots. There's been, they threw a waiter out of a plate glass window. A woman was stabbed in the neck. Rapes, drug use. So our parks are unsafe. Our city's unsafe. So crime, I think, is really the main issue and focus. Um, Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of the candidates are not strong enough on this vaccine passport. I think that a lot of them have complied, and they, for, again, it's a personal choice. Some of them were like, I want to be able to move freely. I want to be able to travel. So lots of them took the vaccine for various different reasons. Some of them have other jobs, and they did it to keep their employment. And that is not going to help the situation. I mean, again, if you believe that you did it, because you believe in the vaccine, that's one thing. But if you took it because you felt like you were coerced into it, there is always a choice. You can't say I had no choice. There's always a choice. Okay, you may not like the options, but there's always a choice.
That's
And
right.
um, I just, again, we've all watched our governments lie to us this entire time during this pandemic. I mean, they've been lying to us for years, arguably decades, but we've really seen them blatantly lie to us. And then all of a sudden, they roll out a vaccine that is untested, hasn't met any of the normal checks or hurdles to have a vaccine approved. Um, we know that they're corrupt. We know that 50% of their budget for the CDC and NIH comes from big pharma. They slap an FDA approval, which is also corrupt. And what, you think that that's going to make me feel better and compel me to take it? Like it was interesting. I was talking to my sister-in-law, and she's pretty much an anti-vaxxer altogether. Her children are vaccinated at all, and they're the healthiest kids ever. So she, I said to her, "Are you going to take this vaccine?" And she was like, "Well, certainly not in the beginning. I'm going to wait and see." And I remember in the beginning, people were like nervous that they're not going to be able to get their shot. And I'm like, listen, you can have mine. Don't worry, there's going to be plenty for everyone. And they were so scared that they weren't going to get their vaccine. And I remember saying, thank you for taking it, because the more people that take it, the closer we get to herd immunity, and then I don't have to take it. But that's not the case. That's not the case. They're not accepting something like herd immunity. They're not accepting something like someone who's had COVID before and has antibodies or natural immunity. That's not acceptable. They're not even giving people who may be at high risk of vaccine injury a medical exemption. I mean, people with autoimmune and other, and heart disease or heart issues, they're not giving them any type of medical exemption, which also makes me step back and wonder what is really going on here. Again, this is not about public health, because if it were about public health, they would take those factors into consideration, and they're not.
Maybe the last question for today, Tamara. It could be long answer, or could be short answer. What's the roadmap? What's the game plan? What's the final point of all this ruckus that we have in the world today? This election that we have, the COVID, the BLM, Antifa, China, Russia. What's the point of it all? Why would it connects so easily with each other in some picture that it's still a little bit blurry, seriously blurry for most of us. But the better people failed to conquer the world than what we have today in the White House. Think of Roman Empire, think of Nebuchadnezzar, just think of whoever tried, Alexander the Great even. The empires were built, but they fell apart. And now we have those good-for-nothing people trying to conquer the world, and they are really like refuse. To me, the people who are sitting in the World Health Organization or trying to build a program for the kids at school, they're really not knowing what the purpose of life in this world is, what is a human adventure, and they definitely not fans of Jordan Peterson. They're telling people that it was never a joyride like you would have in Disneyland. That's basically why Disneyland has been built. But what they want to achieve? What do you think? I'm saying they, but
Um, I mean, ultimate control. I mean, so I've been asking myself this question, and now this is going to really sound somewhat crazy and uh, almost sci-fi, but I have been reading a lot on transhumanism, and I don't know if you have been following the transhuman trend. So there's this belief and ideology that it's not even an ideology. It's actually more than that. That technology is somehow going to allow people to live forever. And that's basically what transhumanism is. And these, tech oligarchs, this is the race that they are in. They want to truly live forever. And if they achieve this, and there's a belief that this can be achieved with AI and all the new technologies that are coming out. And if they reach this and achieve this, they're going to need sustainability for the planet, which is why there's such a strong push for climate or so many climate concerns. Um,
You see,
because
you put some reason into their heads. In my opinion, there is no. They have blue origin. They're going to live on Mars. They're going to live on Jupiter, wherever they want to go. That's their point. It's I don't know if they at all care. To me, it's. I'm sorry to interrupted you, but it's something that. Yeah, that is something that comes to you when you watch too many. I mean, they do the sci-fi is front and center. Of course, that's why people are so forward thinking, like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. They really they geniuses in their fields. But who they gonna deliver the boxes to? Who's gonna buy Teslas
yeah, I
in
mean,
this beautiful world?
yeah, well, look, if you follow, what Bill Gates says, I mean, the population is increasing at a pretty quick rate, and by just a few more years, we're going to be at something like 9 billion people on the planet, and they believe that that's entirely too many. I personally would never want to live forever. Again, following Jordan Peterson, I mean, he talks about how hard life is. I mean, there's days where I want to do a Thelma and Louise, in a convertible and off a cliff, especially watching what's going on. So I'm certainly not one who, who I even started smoking last year so that I can shorten my lifespan.
Come on,
So
don't do that.
I mean, I look around and I'm like, who wants to live in a world like this? But I do have responsibility, and I do have a lot of people who do look up to me. And I'm saying this in a joking manner. I'm in the fight for as long as I'm strong enough to fight. I don't know. I mean, what is the ultimate plan? I mean, for right now, I do see that it's government control. I do believe that it is linking all the governments together. All these corrupt organizations, like your World Health Organization, your United Nations, and your entire party of Davos, along with your transnational corporations. Everybody's getting sort of a piece of this. I think we're going to have a two-class system. Get rid of the middle class, and it's going to be if you make $30,000 a year, or if you make $1 million, you're in that everybody else category. And unless you're making, north of probably a couple 100 million, will you be in, it might even be the bill. I don't even know where the cutoff is, but you're going to be in that sort of elite category. And I mean, I've never believed in this whole, open borders thing. And, they sell it like it's fairness, equality, equity. But what it really is creating a slave class. I mean, one global slave class. We've already seen this even working on Wall Street. Wages have decreased through the years. I know people who are making $225,000 are now making, $165,000, and they're in their third job in 2 years. So wages are compressing all around, and companies, offshore technology. I mean, it is just replacing, human beings in a lot of these roles. So um, I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't see. I can't help but to see a nefarious strategy behind this all, because if you look at it objectively, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense at all. Donald Trump made in 3 years, he made more sense. I'm not counting the last year that he was.
Because that's because he's not part of the club. I mean, look at how effectively he exposed fake news. I mean, I've always known that our media was, lean to one side. But I never thought that it was pure propaganda. And now I see a very different perspective only because he shined the light on fake news. So
Exceptionally effectively.
yeah, I mean he's completely rattled the cage. I mean, look, I didn't really like him in 2016. I voted for him because he was the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party, but I didn't go in liking him. And then when I started to see the policies that he was implementing, I was really liking those policies. But at the same time, I saw the left start to scream about impeachment from the day he took office. And I was worried back then because when I was seeing social media, friends of mine who were Democrats were already bought in and already emotionally vested on their dislike for Donald Trump. And, when the media is talking about impeaching him and throwing him out of office and Madonna talking about blowing up the White House, I was like, these people want him out of office so bad, they'll do it by assassination, resignation, or impeachment. But even assassination, I was like, they will kill this man. And I thought then, if that happens, if they get him out of office before his term is up, that means we truly do not have a democracy. And the ends did not justify the means. I never would have thought that we really don't have a democracy. And now looking at the situation, I mean, I see very clearly that they just never expected Donald Trump to win. They
No,
were
absolutely.
they were caught flat-footed and they never expected him to win. So, and they were never going to let that happen again.
Yeah. It's one of my guests had a very good comparison. He said, imagine a soccer match. Usually the score in soccer is pretty low. And it goes 0-0, like for almost entire games, quite often. And imagine, he says, two star teams playing together and nobody's scoring, and then somebody jumps out of the stands and he scores one goal, and then the other one, and he shows that those people they have anything else on their minds but not playing the game. And he runs away. So that's the story of someone who knows what he's doing. He came over. He took off the ground this huge Leviathan airplane. He was able to take it to the air and control it for a while, and he knew how to do it. He was not interested in getting rich off of it, to make his friends rich off of it. And it's interesting how they could not find anything on him. That's one of the mind-boggling things, because in New York, there's a lot of smart people, as was said before, and you pick them in the street and you can find stuff on them. You can
and I'm sure he's a Boy Scout. Yeah.
Yeah. So and they could not find or prove anything towards him. We'll see. I hope that he comes back. I hope it will be another schooling moment for the enemies, and I think that they would be happy if they would get halfway to where they're going to be, and what was their plan. Like you ask for like 500% of what you want, and you're happy with 100% then of what you want. Would be happy with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the only way he'll successfully come back is if the populace rises up and starts fighting all the issues that exist, whether it's election fraud, which is happening. They're definitely challenging in all 50 states. Critical race theory. You have parents overthrowing school boards. You have the vaccine passport. So it has to be a fight on all fronts. And people that are seeing, and look, it doesn't matter if you are a left wing or right wing populist. Like we need to unite together to really rise up against what is happening, which is ultimately government control.
And even small programs like this one, they're capable of pulling people off the screens of the television and stop believing in fake news. And at least we are trying. We may be wrong on things, but that because we're human, but we try to get to the core of the matter. We try to find the truth. We try to be hoping for a better future, but not on the account of fabricating crap and just to make our point falsely appearing sound, so to speak. I don't know if somebody will be watching it. I want to try a risky thing. I want to do an ad lib in English on the matter that I advertise on my program. So stay with us, Tamara. You may learn something interesting. For this summer is slipping away. We're in the second day of autumn, according to the American tradition. So this time I want to bring to you those wonderful wines from Alicante area of Valencia, Spain, the classical area where they make wine for millennia and then some more. So we have here very light Marina Party. We have Marina Alta, more kind of classy bottle, and it's a very good white wine made of Moscatel Alexandrie, and it's a very well made bottle. It looks beautiful on the table. And the third kind is Marina Alta in a blue bottle. It was to commemorate the 25 years of this particular vineyard in Marina Alta, the area that is kind of peninsula, sort of sticking out of the coasts of Valencia. So it has medals. Of course, it's to win medals at home is the hardest thing. It's easy to come elsewhere and show off. But they won medals in Spain, and they also let me show you. I have the actual thing right here. So they're very attractive. Ask for them in the stores. They're not online yet, but in some stores they carry them. I know in the city they have it, and they have it in Brooklyn too, in the liquor warehouse. I checked in person. I went there and I saw them on the shelf. It's a new product, new wine, very well made. Vegan, by the way. This sign, the yellow one, means it's vegan. So I don't know where the non-veganness comes into the picture of winemaking, but it's taken care of. This has number 28, so it's 28th year of this vineyard's existence. The 20th year they make wine there, also vegan again. You get it chilled, you chill it and you serve it with your favorite fish, it was your favorite hors d'oeuvre, it was your favorite seafood, and you have your summer stretched out forever. So please, Marina Alta, ask it in your liquor store. Tell them to order it. I'm done with the commercial, believe it or not. Tamara, thank you so very much, and thank you for finding time. Am I wrong to think that we may have a continuation of this conversation in some time?
Sure.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We'll hear from the feedback. Most of our listeners are Russian speakers, but YouTube has this option. Once it's recorded, you can turn on the subtitles, and you can try the translation. You can have Russian subtitles. I don't know about live, but once it's recorded, I think the computer has a better chance of decoding it and translating it. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Yes, you too. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Oops.